I know time is valuable. Thank you for coming tonight. We are videotaping this presentation because I know some people are on vacation and a lot of people have questions, so we're going to make sure that we get that information to folks. And we're going to do an FAQ also if there's any additional questions or concerns after this presentation. But just so you know, this came up as a result of a lot of conversations with our leadership team over the summer. And in looking at our data, our discipline data, our attendance data, probably 80% or more of our disciplinary problems have a stem from a cell phone. Either because a student is using a cell phone when they're not supposed to be, or in an unacceptable place, or they're texting one another when they're supposed to be learning, or they text somebody and say, meet me here in the bathroom, or in a place they're not supposed to be, or they're cyberbullying, sending nasty text messages, or Instagramming, or social media sending things. I asked him to come tonight because he has to deal with a lot of these issues during the school day when we have them. So that was kind of the stem of it. And we talked about this, and then as we were talking about it, a grant showed up from the Department of Ed. The commissioner sent a grant out for this Yondr cell phone pilot program. And in fact, today I got an email from the Mass Association of School Superintendents because Maura Healy is doing an investigation around the negative effects of TikTok and Instagram on students. And typically that occurs via cell phones. So I can't say for sure, but I have a feeling I know where this is going with the state and what will be happening across schools probably very soon. So we're just kind of getting a head start on it, and we did get the grant. It was a competitive grant, and we did get it. So we are going to try this pilot program. So Matt is here to show you and tell you what it's all about and to answer any questions. I know a lot of people have different questions about safety and such, so Matt will be here to answer those, and Officer DeVorley also will be able to answer some of those questions for you. So, Matt Army.
Hi everybody, thanks so much for coming out. Just a little bit of information about me. I started working for Yondr in 2017. I was Yondr's second intern ever, and I actually started in the entertainment industry. I was implementing Yondr at event spaces from 5 to 10,000 in capacity, where every single adult would have to put their phone in the pouch. Some of the clients I worked here for are actually here. I worked a lot of Jack White shows from the White Stripes, working at venues like the House of Blues in Boston. Some other really cool things that Yondr's done in the Boston area is working with Bill Burr out in Springfield at the Mass Mutual Center, or even sold out shows at Fenway Park, TD Garden. The reason why I bring this up is because Yondr was created for adults. This is not a good kid, bad kid thing. This is about us as adults. I think we kind of dropped the ball a little bit on the cell phone thing. The reason being is that this is the most powerful piece of technology that an individual could own since the inception of the car. In order to drive a car, you gotta be 16 years old. You have to go through driver's ed. You gotta drive the speed limit, but most importantly, you have to wear your seatbelt. Yondr is a simple barrier between a student and their device. Each student will receive their own pouch. They're going to put their name on it, their grade on it, and they can decorate it. To be quite frank, they can do anything they want to the pouch as long as they don't try to break it or lose it. You know, it's their responsibility to bring to school to and from school every day. So, we've been creating phone-free schools since 2014. Some pretty small text, but just to summarize it, a lot of educators were going to our shows, across the country, and really saw such a link between detriments in schools, whether it be fighting, bad test scores, horrible SEL-related things happening in school, and cell phones. So that's why we kind of came to be. So again, I kind of mentioned this already, but I'll show you in action. So again, this is the pouch, this is the base, this is the keys to the castle. All right, you see this green circle at the top of the pouch? You're gonna tap it, press the button, it opens right up. In the morning, students will be asked to take their Apple Watch AirPods, their phone, and then their burner phone, and just put it all in the pouch. And close it as they're coming into school. At the end of the day, these will be placed right by the exits. Typically about 1 per every 150 to 200 students is necessary. And you just tap and go. To give you all a frame of reference for how long it typically takes, Chicopee High School out in Western Mass, they have 950 students, and from the last bell ringing until the last bus leaving the property is a 9-minute process in total for 900 students. This is an annual program. So this is an annual program, and what that means is that we're training admin, providing student policies and templates for community outreach, as well as implementation planning. From there, we're going to kind of outreach to the community, which is part of what we're doing right now. After that, we really pride ourselves on providing in-person support. We recognize that this is a really kind of a strange thing that we're doing here. Not too many people have experience of making a phone-free school. We've been doing it across the country for years now. I really got my start working in schools in New York City, Philly, and then coming up back to Boston, kind of where I'm home, where I'm from. And I've been doing this about 50 schools a year. So I'm really good at making a very quick process and as painless as possible for everybody. Because at the end of the day, this is going to be really tough for the students, and that's something we should acknowledge. Over 1 million students use Yondr every day. Again, there's some great statistics in here, but to give you some anecdotal summaries, day one, students are going to learn how to make eye contact with each other. People, especially adults, actually walk down the street and just kind of do this. They forget to smile and wave at each other. And those quick little interactions throughout the day are really important to kind of socializing and becoming an adult. The next thing you're going to see is a bit of a loud cafeteria, which is really great because everybody's going to be talking to each other, and it might be a little bit noisier than usual, but that's kind of what we want. Most importantly, what will happen is conflict resolution. Every single school I go to, what I hear about are, oh, the students just aren't fighting anymore, there's no filming. It honestly feels like a much more calm place to be. And that's the feedback I hear from students, especially at Springfield Central High School. There's actually an article written last year from Mass Live about the students' perspective of Yondr about a month after the program launched. And most of the students were like, yeah, we were being dramatic at first, but it's kind of nice to not have the pressure of the outside world kind of constantly following you. It's a lot for a 16-year-old. And I am going to skip a few slides because I realize I've been chatting a lot. But this is a quote from that article I just referenced. It's not bad at all, and it's honestly cool going to school with the feeling of no cell phone. I never thought I would hear that in my life, and I heard that last year, so, it's pretty cool. Yeah, and then we also offer some really cool staff engagements. We always are offering Q&As throughout the year where teachers can get some credits, as well as really trying to connect as many of our principals and superintendents across the country, really get best practices from each other. And yeah, finally, we have some really, really cool student programs. First and foremost is our student pouch artwork. We love to see pictures of the pouches, and then we'll always send back posters, which is really cool. The students' artwork, huge. And we have student work programs. It's a way for us to show students kind of the more fun side of Yondr, why we were, originally created, which is to help have a more fun show. Students get to see adults kind of complain about Yondr, and they're like, well, I do this every day, it's not a big deal. We pay students $18 an hour, and you have to be 16 or older to work. So with that, all right. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you all. And my name is Matt, and I'm here to answer any questions. I'm more so your logistics person and kind of bigger, overarching questions. If there's anything that pertains to like your specific student, you know, it might be better just to hold off on that question for the admin of the school, just because I don't work for the school. I can only answer, you know, the larger questions. Right, just saw your hand.
I was wondering, what would happen if there's a school shooting and they don't have their phones to call the police or?
Yeah, for sure. So, like, my understanding is that there is a way to call 911 from every single room in the school. And the pouches, again, are just a barrier. It's not a jail. They can't be cut open.
They can be cut?
Yep. And then in the back, I'm sorry.
What phone do you have, like a teacher phone?
I can address that. We have systems that we have put into the district, which every school system has to have all phones dial out to 911 to the police station. So if there is an emergency in the school, they can be called from the classroom. And the National Safety Council also recommends that having cell phones is more of a danger in class when there's a incident than it is safe. The noise from the cell phones can attract somebody to the classroom when you don't want them to know you're there. The lights from the cell phone can attract somebody. And Officer DeJordy can confirm because he's been giving classes at Whitensville Christian about this. If you want to tell them some of your stats as well.
Sure. So basically, you're more likely to be struck by lightning than be involved in one of these incidents, a shooter incident in a school. Not saying that it can't happen, not saying that it won't happen. And also, the amount of people and students on this one street, if something were to happen, the amount of phone calls just to students and students trying to make phone calls would most likely, and this is what I've been told, I don't have the data for it, would most likely crush the cell phone grid, and nobody would be able to use them. The amount of calls that would be coming out. So, that's those. I mean, again, those are just, you know, a couple of things that you know, when I teach active shooter training to the staff, and like the superintendent said, I was at the Whitensville Christian School training them today. These are just things that we talk about, and to try and have somebody pinpoint somebody in the classroom to maybe make a phone call, or like the superintendent said, every single phone, every single classroom in this building and across the district has a phone in it, and every single one is able to call 911, and every single one has gets feedback from the police department as far as what room number, what phone number. We can call that phone back to any, and it's a state law that we have to be able to call that phone back. So every single phone in this district has its own phone number, which was extremely expensive. So.
With that hat,
Yeah, so I have two questions. Can you explain the house thing for me again? Like I'm in junior high school. So if they're keeping the pouch,
yeah,
they go home with it.
yeah.
So when they walk through the school and they put all their items in the pouch, like closing it, locking it? Is that, okay, and then the only way to unlock it is to hit that thing you said, right?
Yeah.
But then they're walking out of the school with the pouch. What happens if they close it when they walk outside the door?
It's not a big deal. Like, we'll have a couple in the morning, so when the
No,
students...
like what happens if they leave and go, like they're on the bus or they're walking home and they accidentally close it with something in there? Is that locked until the next day?
To be quite frank with you, I've never seen a student in all my...
I know. Just because I asked it, you know it's gonna happen. So, in that specific example, because I know my daughter, in that specific example, if that happens, then what happens? They have to wait until the next day?
I mean, that's probably what I would say, just to reinforce the lesson that you really should open up your pouch before you leave the school, and then you'll never ever have to deal with that again.
However, if it happens within, you know, a reasonable time frame, there's people in the building, and, you know, they'd be able to come back into the building.
That's gonna happen. And then my second question,
Yeah.
because again, I know my daughter. So say she arrives at school and she forgot her cleats, because she has a soccer team. How, this probably more for the administration, how would she, if I were from home, how would she call me and say, hey, Dad, can you bring my cleats?
I like this. So for those who know me, I'm Scott Connery, I'm the new principal here. Let me ask you, how would you have done it when you were in school?
Oh, I didn't think anything, but.
So the apple fell far from the
Went to
tree.
the office maybe?
That's exactly the answer.
If that's the answer.
That's the
then
exact
what
answer.
I'll tell
Yep.
her. I know that's what she's gonna ask.
Yep, can I please go to the office, make a phone call? I gotta change the time I'm being picked up after school. I forgot my cleats, I forgot my medication, go to the nurse. We have multiple phones in the main office that will be happy.
I said, you know, you're shit out of luck.
So we do accommodate for that.
If for some reason, if she needed to get into the phone to get a number or something like that, we could open it up in the office and let her use the phone and just put it back into the bag if need be.
And I saw a hand all the way in the back, I just want to make sure I get to you.
I also had a question. So going back to the safety thing, I think as a parent, knowing that if there was a shooter in the school, I do want them to call 911, but I want to hear my child's voice if something were to happen, and I don't want them to feel like they can't reach me if something were to happen. I mean, they can't unlock it in the classroom, so I think that's.
If there is an emergency like that, the student could cut the pouch open.
So they're all going to be fighting for a scissor to like see who can call them first, or
What?
are they going to carry scissors around?
I mean, I probably wouldn't recommend that,
Yeah,
but
like
it's
I
just,
would like, I've seen the news lately, I mean, if this was 10 years ago, I would be fine, but today, I sit here and I get teary-eyed thinking about this, because last year, or this past spring, I don't even remember the date, there was an incident at the high school, I dropped my son off, I had no idea what was going on, and he called me saying, Mom, I can't even go to school, everybody's on the buses, nobody's going in. I didn't get an auto call for a good hour, I had no idea what was going on, I was sitting at home panicking, driving around, everybody was texting each other on the moms, nobody knew what was happening. And by the time we found out, it was like probably a good 45 minutes to an hour later. I had no idea whether there was a mass shooter, whether somebody had hurt themselves. And for me, like, I don't want to wait an hour panicking, knowing, is my child alive? Is something going wrong? Is the school on fire? Like, I shouldn't wait that long to be told what's happening.
So, just to, I mean, that was a police investigation, so I can only comment on so many things. But that incident, your panic was caused by cell phones, right? Not by having them and being able to reach out was caused by cell phones. By the time the kids were here that day, the incident was basically over. It was just securing the building was why they were waiting. And there was so much going on, and the amount of time that we had to investigate that was minutes in the scheme of things, seconds. So the first priority is the safety of the kids and the building. And then, no offense, but you get notified after. That's just the way it goes. And the superintendent put out a great letter and email revolving that, which basically itemized everything that we did, everything we had to do that morning. And I know I can't comment on the investigation, and every single incident that happens across a country, is different. So I'm not saying that cell phones might help in one situation and not help in another situation. I'm not saying that at all. We're telling you that the amount of things that are investigated on a day-to-day basis, whether it's the administration, whether it's the police, there's probably, I would say, upwards, just in my opinion, upwards of 75 to 80% of my investigations somehow lead to a cell phone or the use of a cell phone. And I'm not saying that that they're using it to commit crimes. I'm saying that it revolves around that.
that's very well said, I appreciate
So
it.
will there be more scissors in the classroom so that, I mean, I'm just, or do I have to send my child to school with a weapon, with a scissor?
So let me turn this on to you, back onto you. If everybody had the freedom of calling and the grid, the cell phone grid just wipes out, which means no one can use a cell phone, what would you do?
I don't even want to think about it.
I know, and it's a horrible topic. I teach this stuff for weeks, every single school year, and it's horrible, I get it. But that's, if you can't, I mean, we've had the luxury in the last 20 plus years or 20 years to have technology at our fingertips. And, I still remember when I was in high school and leaving football practice, I'd be calling collect and what's your name? Pick me up at football practice. And then I hang up. So those are things like that, and I hate to go back, and I know this isn't 1997, 98. I know it's not that time. I know we've come a long way. Technology has come a long way, you know, but in these times, it's, you know, there's so many what ifs that you can't answer, and that's unfortunate. And the what if of the school shooting is the biggest one out there, and I can't tell you if it's going to happen, when it's going to happen. I hope to never have to respond to one in this district or any surrounding districts. But I can't guarantee that happens, and nor could he guarantee that would happen in the TD Bank Garden or any concert venue or any shopping mall you go to. So,
Really quick, I think I see a student question.
Yeah, there was a question, it was like regarding sending your kids to school with scissors. Every classroom, even like some of the English classrooms, have a bucket of scissors, like plenty for everyone.
And are the teachers going to be required to put their ones in Yondr?
Oh, yes.
Yep.
So we can't require anything, but every teacher will receive a Velcro Yondr pouch. And if they want to model while every other student is having their phone in the pouch, you know, I would say that's probably a pretty good idea.
We are
At the end-
getting pouches for all stuff.
At the end of the day, a few years ago, I was at a school at a large city, and I was giving my presentation about being off the phones, and I saw a student, and he said, "What if the teachers just don't teach?" And I was like, "That's crazy," and I look behind me, and I see an adult around my age on their phone with their feet up on the desk, scrolling through the gram, and I thought that was probably the worst thing ever. I really sided with the students there, and I said, you know what, maybe the adults should do their job. So, any questions?
Is it a grant, like, for the year, like funded through the state?
Yeah.
What, going forward, who would be paying for the program?
Yes.
So I can answer that.
Yeah, just curious how,
Yep.
after the
So
year.
it's a pilot.
Yep,
We'll see, we'll keep data this year.
okay.
I suspect that the grant will renew just because of the investigations that are going on.
And is it a statewide thing? So it's all
Yep.
districts?
Desi invited anybody in the state to apply for it. They were focusing on some of the underperforming schools, but we squeaked in. So, but typically year to year, we would try to find grant funding to do that. We get a $50,000 safety grant almost every year, and it could fall under that as well. So we would try to fund it with grant funding moving forward. And I imagine the cost goes down each year after the first year of implementation. So
And what happens if a student loses a pouch?
So best practice is to hold the phone for the day and give them a new pouch. If it happens again, then we'll hold it until a parent or guardian can come pick it up and figure out, you know, what we can do to help the student stop using the pouch. Actually, I saw the gentleman in the
Yeah,
half first.
the school here don't have a metal detector for the kids when they come in.
Yeah.
I think they should place one here itself and have an officer when schools is, the students coming in. There should be a patrol around the grounds, make sure that the students are really coming in. And anything that the officer can see suspicious, they could pull them over and check them out or whatever.
Yeah.
feel
I
that-
can't go too deep in that just because I don't work here. I'm just a pouch guy.
As far as metal detectors go, it's just not feasible. At the cost and manning them is more of it. And we don't have police. I am assigned to the district as a school officer, so I'm not here every single day. But when I am here, I'm in the main lobby as the kids come into the building. If anybody, and it happens many times, if somebody's walking around the outside of the building and school's already started and it's not the gym class, then I get the call or I get asked to go and make sure that they're either off the grounds or they go into the building. And it's just, we wouldn't be able to get everybody through the metal detectors in a timely manner. They would have to show up at school at 5 in the morning, and the cost is extraordinary. So it has been looked at in the past. It's just the cost to have them and man them is not feasible.
Because that's the way the kids bring weapons into school. I'm a bus driver, I'm a school bus driver, and I had a student pull out a knife on me in the school bus when I picked him up from the school. Now, how he got a knife from the school into my bus? See what I'm saying?
Oh, it's, and
So-
I mean, weapons can be hid anywhere.
Right,
I
and
mean,
the
it
only
could
way
be-
you hit means when they're coming into school. You know what I'm saying? When they come into school, they could hide it somewhere in the school property.
And it's only as good as the people that are checking the backpacks coming through the doors. You'd have to look through every single notebook page, every single book page. The amount of weapons that are out there that could be snuck in anywhere, even in this room right now, is very, you can't tell. There's no way to tell.
And just really quick, are there any students in the building right now? Any student-related questions? I know you already said something, but do you have any other? Yeah.
How long are students going to exit the building in a timely manner? Like, how many machines are they gonna be, like,
Yeah.
I know kids already miss buses, so.
So for this process, again, like you can come up and see it after if you want, but really it's just 1 second. It's a tap and go process. So for your school, I would say you guys probably need around, 5 to 8 faces. Our recommendation is 1 for every 150 students. Now this might seem crazy, but Yondr makes your dismissal process faster. The reason being is that students have to go to the exit to open their pouches, right? I would assume that most people probably want their phones at the end of the day, so that's why they're so motivated to go in a bit of a more timely manner to the buses. That's typically what happens, but, again, like, Jacoby High, which is about double the school size of you all, they have, from their last bell ringing to their last bus leaving the property, everybody's gone, is a 9-minute process. But it's very, very quick. I don't want to hold anybody up from getting out of school. I know I wanted to leave school when I was your age. And then you,
Yeah, I just was
Oh,
wondering
sorry, just a
student. How do you get the students to buy into it? Because I can see kids saying, well, I'm just gonna leave it in my locker, I'm gonna leave my phone on bed, and then they spend locker time, they go to the bathroom, so how do you get the students that have been doing it at other schools?
Yeah.
How do you get them on board?
So a lot of it is just patience, part of it, and also like being very vocal about the rules and what they are, and coming up with a system that essentially like a time management system. So if you think about this, like we typically get anywhere from 10% to 30% like non-compliance in the first day. That means 70% of the students are following the rules. I think any admin would be very grateful to have 70% compliance on any initiative, let alone something revolving cell phones. So that last 10 to, if we're talking 10 to 30, your school around 500 students is probably going to show up between like 10 to 12%. Hope me on that one. But, like that's like such a more easier, like manageable issue than if we were just to say like phones off and away for the day. They would be impossible to manage. And again, most of the school students, like, it takes them a couple weeks, months, or maybe even years, but they do appreciate the fact that, like, it's on them their whole time. Like, again, this was created for adults, and we're trying to treat people like adults here. And did you have a question? Yeah.
Yeah, if I like use it, does it cost any money to get another one that I can pay?
Not your first one. You got it. You can do it.
It's gonna be a $5 charge. You'll get one free. If you use it, we'll replace that one for free, and then you can $5
And I saw you had your hand up for a while. I want to make sure I get this covered.
Yeah, just curious, I don't know if this is even a feasible compromise, it seems like safety and gun shooting seems to be a very big concern for parents, right? Is it a feasible option to have an unlocking system in the classrooms?
You don't want it.
I understand it kind of defeats some of the purpose, but if that's something is going to contention, like, I think as parents, we can do better and encourage, like, this is the policy as staff. Our
just make schools safer. I know that schools across the country are using like federal Title IV money to make this happen. I know that we're seeing some really cool data from schools. The school in Providence. So Providence Public Schools, all 7 middle schools use Yondr. The first middle school, which is the largest middle school in Providence, Nathaniel Green, implemented Yondr and saw a 4% rise in attendance. And they decided to go full wide. The school was safer because there were less fights. The school was safer because students were not putting themselves in compromising positions by, for example, filming other students in the bathroom, which is a common middle school prank that is now breaking federal law, and students are getting charged as adults for that. Because it's, yeah, I'm not a lawyer, but I hear some horror stories every now and again. I would say in terms of the bases, it's unfair to the teachers. The teachers have enough to deal with. This essentially is like clock watching on steroids. If the kids know it's in every room, they'll be like, Mr. Army, come on, just please, 5 minutes, gotta come on, something, you know? And so like, again, we work with some of the biggest high schools in the state, and they can get out of there pretty dang quick. I would definitely recommend keeping these out of the classrooms, at the front entrance. We provide plenty of bases to make sure that you all have plenty for a go bag, plenty for the admin team, you know, guidance counselor, health office, as well as more than enough to get all the students out in time again.
We know what these questions are all. I know everybody is talking about shooting. What about an actual emergency, right? So you're saying that the teachers are going to put possibly these things not happening as well. Don't you guys go up to the back school, the gym, and you go to other outside activities and things like that where you're not there alone? Who's calling for an emergency on a cardiac arrest or something like that that's going on? It doesn't have to be an actual shooting. That's just one part of it. The other part, what happens if the kid doesn't put it in there? What kind of accountability is being held on that? So if they're not doing that and they're subject to some sort of punishment, why don't we just follow it? And I get that you have a lot of disciplinary actions with the phones, but why wouldn't we just punish the kid who has the phone out in the first place as opposed to everybody else doing it? And to say, to Craig's question up there, to say that, what did you do? Well, some people actually walk to school 50, 60 years ago, right? We have cars that are driving now, so just because technology is there, we have another outlet to communicate with our kids. So some people are single parents, kids are working at home, actually communicate throughout the day, whether they're expecting them on their breaks, should be their time, on their lunches, which should be their time, to get a message out. Is there going to be more people in the, more secretaries or, administrators in the offices accepting these calls and making sure we get them out? And then lastly, some of these things, to her point, we're reaching, nobody's all reaching out on an active, not everybody's calling at the exact same time. But what actually benefits the school in what we know in our town with social media, just like they're all, you guys get a lot of defense when somebody's child is actually reached out and talked to another parent saying it's just this, and then that goes through the grapevine, and you guys are actually you guys are defending a lot better, right? If all of a sudden all that happens, we don't have it, and then it takes time to get the right message out, to get all the facts straight. I understand that. Not everybody else does, but when that finally does, it's going to be a barrage of just negativity. Why did we wait this long? Why did we wait that? So there's just a bunch of questions, and I understand why we're doing it, why you're looking at it. It makes sense, but there is a lot of time in technology where we're at right now that people rely on this method of communication with their kids. So I think it's just a big thing. There is a lot of safety concerns, down in the hallway itself. Somebody drops down, or they run into a phone, or somebody actually be calling. Those are few and far between.
And I can answer a couple of those. The teachers will have pouches, but theirs are Velcro. Theirs will not lock. So if they have kids outside, they'll have their pouch, but they'll be able to take their phone out and use it, because adults don't have to have the same, they have to role model, but clearly they're professionals. They're not going to follow the same rules as kids, so to speak. kids are not complying with the policy, we do have a progressive discipline matrix that will address those if they do it once, if they do it twice, if they do it 3 times, to a point where the phone will be taken away and not allowed in school at all, and then we'll end up inconveniencing the parent, which we'd rather not do. So hopefully parents will help us to get the students to comply with that.
Well, sorry, I know you're answering.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of my question. Why wouldn't you just do that in the beginning? I understand that you're going to have more issues, but why wouldn't you just be more like, hold them accountable for that instant when they're actually on their phone? For all
Well,
the kids
and that's a good point, but we've tried. We've tightened up our cell phone policy almost every year for the past 5 years. And they are stealthy. They are so stealthy. It's a very hard thing to police, and especially when we only have 3 administrators in the building too that might be running around. In the classroom, it's a little easier with the teacher, depending, but if they're working with a small group, another kid as they're going up, they can't be paying attention to every single student and providing the quality of education that we need to provide to our kids. Our job is to provide your kids with a free and accessible public education. That's what our job is. Our job is not to police cell phones all day long and compromise that education of every other kid in the class. They could be walking down the hall on their cell phone. They could be in the bathroom on their cell phone bullying somebody else. We can't police every second. We try. We've got all the cameras. We've got teachers on duty in the hallways. We do the best we can, but it is virtually impossible unless the phone is locked in a locker or locked in a pouch. It's virtually impossible to maintain the level of accountability that we need to give your kids the education they deserve. That's the bottom line.
I just want to comment on, you made the statement about lunchtime being their time. At the middle school last year, we were very strict in the classrooms, in the hallways, but we allowed them to use their phones in the cafeteria. The amount of videoing, airdropping, and of inappropriate pictures, bullying that went on in the cafeteria on the phones was we spent watching a child become dysregulated from lunchtime on because of something that was sent to them during lunch was incredible. They didn't get their phone all morning, but once we gave it, you allowed them to use it. It's still, they're not mature enough to self-regulate through it. Some.
That's my point. Some of them are.
Absolutely.
Those people are,
Absolutely.
No, way in the back. Absolutely, yeah.
This is for administration as well. I'm not looking to throw anybody under the bus. Teachers, staff, everybody has a lot on their plate. My question does come into play with enforcement on the classroom level, because in the middle school, there is a policy for cell phones. I can tell you without question that was not enforced on every classroom level, and it was a problem. It was a very big problem in our house, and it led to a lot of issues. So I want to know on the classroom level, how is that going to be enforced? What if you have a teacher that's sort of a little bit looser on the standards, or, a kid does have a phone in their pocket, and on that, and again, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but it was absolutely a problem last year. And to piggyback on that, is there a way for kids to anonymously kind of throw another student under the bus? And I'll tell you, my kid's not going to be the one to be like, oh, Joe Schmo next to me has his phone in his pocket. He's not going to be the one to do that. So that just puts my kid sort of in a vulnerable place to begin with, and also could be the subject of the videoing and everything else that if there are kids that aren't following the rules, how do you regulate that with the student population in that classroom or in the, in the gym or wherever they are? Again, because teachers can't have their eyes on everybody all the time. So those are my main 2 concerns with this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of teachers actually ask me that question because, maybe some teachers who have tougher time managing that problem might want to know something about it. And what's nice is that it keeps it out of the classroom. Not having bases in the classroom and having the students pouch as soon as they walk through the front door, that's designed to keep the battle out of the classroom. If and when a teacher does see a cell phone, we want to try to have the least impact and the least distraction from the class. So our best practice is to have either a Google form and/or a dedicated phone line that the staff can call or fill out if and when they see the phone. So that way, like, it's kind of, again, we're talking about time management. So it gives the admin the ability to, you know, finish whatever task they're doing. Know that, like, Matt was caught in history class room 302 at 2 o'clock with a cell phone. The teacher doesn't necessarily need to engage in that battle, but the other side of Yondr is, like, we're never trying to get kids in trouble. The phone just needs to go in the pouch. So if it's like your first time, you know, and you have your phone out in class, just maybe admin comes in, pulls the kid out for a second, puts the phone in the pouch and says, don't do it again. Happens again, now it's a serious consequence. And then in terms of the student anonymous stuff, like if the adults in the building are doing their job right, kids aren't gonna need to tell, you know? Everybody's gonna have the phone in the pouch, for the most part, you know? But, like, I've worked with a lot of schools very similar to yours from the questions I've been hearing. I'll say, give it 2 weeks. This is a 2-week process because we're talking about breaking a habit, the habit being, you know, using the phone all the time. The other side is we're building habits, remembering the pouch every day, remembering to put the phone in the pouch, closing that thing up, putting it in their backpack. We're building new habits and routines. So yes, of course, there's going to be ways that smart students are going to figure out how to get around the system and take their phones out, but it's only about 400, 500 kids here. That's a much easier, you know, lift for admin to make than, let's say, like a Springfield Central with 2,400 students, right? Like, you're probably going to have 50 kids here who are going to have a big issue with Yondr. It's a pretty manageable expectation. Any other?
What's the plan to educate the kids on this process?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have templates for both policy and parent outreach. We have tons of videos for the students, as well as lesson plans for teachers that they can borrow, and other various, you know, like PowerPoint similar to this. We also have a really great student art program that we love to see, especially for the younger kids, where they decorate their pouches and we make posters out of it and send it back. On the other side, for high schoolers, it doesn't happen all the time, but if there's an artist, like, let's say, that plays in Worcester, like Kevin Hart is one of our artists that works with us. He plays in Worcester, then we might be able to hire a few students to come out and work the show. They make some money with Yondr, and suddenly, you know, they're starting to like it a little bit more.
But also, the buildings do grade level assemblies with the students at the very beginning of school. So the students will be educated at those assemblies. We are not going to fully implement the policy until after Labor Day, so that students can be educated, they can ask their questions, they can understand what the consequences will be if they violate that policy. So they'll have time to.
Are they getting the pouches on the first day of school?
No, they will get the pouches the day after Labor Day.
I'm just curious, because I know we said this was for middle school and high school. What about, I know some of them, but not all, but elementary school children as well have phones.
Yeah.
So I don't know if starting younger might be something that to implement when they're younger as well, at least in maybe 5th grade.
Yeah. Well, the grant was for middle and high.
Oh, okay.
But if the pilot works, we do. I mean, we have 950 kids
Right.
at elementary, and the incidences that we have are minimal.
Right.
But we do have that. So just to get them used to it,
Yeah.
you know, if the grant expands, certainly, you know,
Okay.
something we would consider if it works and people, you know,
I just thought maybe they're younger sometimes.
easier as you go up if you're practicing. Yeah.
And then I see another student question in the back.
What kind of policy is the elementary school going to have to kind of mirror the Yondr program?
So we're keeping the policy that we had, which was a fairly strict policy anyway. It's a little bit different at the elementary school because most of those kids aren't as independent. So for parents to pick up the phone versus we just call parents are always picking up their kids anyway. So it's a little bit different than here, but it's still a strict, progressive discipline cell phone policy, the same as you guys have at middle and high.
And the purple, I saw your hands up for a while.
What about our kids who use it for like tracking their diabetic needs and everything?
They'll have a different kind of
saw a hand in the back, black shirt.
I have a couple of questions. The first one is, so we talked about how the kids will contact parents. What about parents contacting kids? I had 3 instances last year where I called the office, gave a message, said, I don't want my child to take the bus home. I need her to meet me at this parking lot, after school, as a walker, and I'm picking her up. And that message never was received by her from the office. I texted her at lunchtime, and she's like, no, I didn't get the call. I didn't get a message. She would have gotten on the bus, and I would have been here waiting for her, and we would have been in 2 totally different spots. So how is that going to be handled by the office?
So we're going to provide parents with all the contact information, not only for the main office, but also for guidance in the nurse's office. So a call can be made to any one of those places. So if the main office, if for some reason the person, nobody's sitting at that desk, which is unusual because we have 3.
But it wasn't a situation of I gave somebody the message and it was not related to my child. 3 times. And also my child was a 504. I was notified so many times last year by my child in the classroom, they're not following my 504. And some of her stuff in her 504 needs to be followed in the moment. And if it's not followed in the moment, it could have consequences.
So that's a discussion we need to have with the building administration.
I'll also say, if students use Chromebooks here, you can always email as well. That's usually the great compromise we have. Yeah.
That was actually another question is you're trying to prevent children from conversing amongst each other with their phones. They all have phones.
But the Chromebooks are controlled by the district, and all content on that Chromebook is controlled by the district. They can't send each other,
Chat isn't disabled.
you know, the chat is disabled and they can't send each other things that are inappropriate because we have a firewall that identifies that, red flags them, and finds out immediately if they do that. So we have far more control over those Chromebooks than we do over their individual cell phones.
See another student question, please.
Yeah, like, kind of bouncing off of what she said, yeah, the students might not be able to send each other inappropriate content, but regarding like meetings and meeting in the bathroom, they can still email each other for that. And,
That can be done verbally.
yeah.
Like, for words confused, like, a simple point. You can walk by and say something to somebody, you can send them a note. I can say, Tammy, meet me in the bathroom at 11:35, and we could meet up. There's a lot, and great, they're talking, but I still think that you're not preventing it.
It's not going to prevent everything, but it will prevent a student on this end of the building from talking and saying meet to a person on this end of the building. So it's definitely going to cut down on some of the issues that we have. And again, it's a pilot. We're going to watch the data, we're going to see what happens. We're not saying it's, we don't know. We're not saying it's perfect, but we do know that MCAS scores have gone down significantly since post-COVID, and use of cell phones and social media has gone up significantly. We know discipline has gone up significantly. We know attendance has gone down significantly. And all of that we see as with cell phones having a huge piece of that. So we're just trying to find ways to address the problem. We've tried to make the policy stricter. It's not working. This was a grant that we were offered. It seems like the Department of Ed is going in this direction. Seems like the Morgan is going in this direction with her investigations. We're trying to get ahead of the curve, and hopefully it makes a difference. Like I said, our job is to provide kids with a quality education, and I can tell you, teaching 2 months last year, it was, and not been in the classroom for like 15 years, wow. It was a struggle. It was a struggle. And you were in one of my classes, so you know.
Oh, yeah.
It was a struggle.
They were never known to do that, but, we're doing it every there. I have one other question.
The pouches, is it also in effect for extracurricular, like, activities, or just at the end of school?
Just
day?
And peach sweater?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have the data, back to middle school and high school, just to show, like, the building, not first of all, in our middle, high school, you know? I mean, he's talking about data, we see it in the data, what's that data? Like, I'd like to see what you see, so.
You want to put that slide back
And
up?
the data in school.
But that's not
versus
us.
outside.
Oh.
Yeah. Not.
You're talking about us.
our schools. Yep, we can share that.
Let's see that. And also, I'll use this question to ask. They're talking about these magnets that you can buy on Amazon. And I want these.
Yeah. Well, I hear about that every day of my life.
Is it true?
Kind of, but not really. So, this is the Yondr magnet. Very strong. This is the cell phone. Look, my cell phone is alive. The ones on Alibaba cannot guarantee that. I have seen, part of this is like messaging to your students. I'm sure there's going to be some very entrepreneurial students, as there are at every single school, that might offer $20, $30, $1,000 for an unlock. Those are either smashing the pouch against the wall or finding some kind of crappy magnet on the internet and trusting that. I have literally seen students come up to me, I got it, it's over, and then the phones get destroyed. So the other side to it is also, again, like we're talking about that time management piece. Students, I don't care if it's a middle schooler or a high schooler. Again, I work in 50 schools a year. This happens, all right? When that does happen, you might see a lot of phones open. How'd you get this open? One of the kids is gonna say something, and then you're gonna find that thing pretty dang quickly. In schools where they've had a fake magnet, or maybe a kid stole one of these because an adult wasn't paying attention, they find it in like a week, if that. You know, and we're also always here to help you all out with supplementary pouch checks throughout the year. My job is to make sure that you all are in the best position to succeed. I've seen this go right plenty of times. I've also seen it go not so right a couple of times here and there, and I know what to look for, and the advice I give you all is because I want this to work. Are there any other questions? I have to get back to Boston pretty soon, but I can definitely take a few more, and if anybody wants to try the pouch, come on up. I can always show you.
Thank you guys for coming, and I'm gonna put out a Google survey form, so if you have more questions or questions that you didn't get a chance to ask tonight, or things that come up, give you an opportunity to share those, and we'll put out an FAQ document, and I will share some data with you all, so that you see. And again, we're really not trying to punish people. We are really just trying to teach and for your kids to learn, and it is a struggle. It's a struggle.
Don't do it. Don't do it, please. Please don't do it. It's horrible.
I mean, we lived. We lived.
One of the things that as people are leaving, they want to have something to think about. I mean, there seems to be, as I'm listening, as a parent and someone that works in the district, that everyone's worrying about the pouch. All right, so your child is putting in a pouch on their body the whole school day. So in our old way, correct me if I'm wrong, my son takes out his phone during class, his teacher's going to take it.
Right.
Take it. Now my son doesn't have his phone. Now he doesn't have it for that emergency, because if I've gone to Alice training this, I'm not gonna give a kid a phone back, that's not what I'm thinking. And I can get choked up because I'm a parent and a teacher. So in that Alice drill, I'm not gonna, like, whose phone did I take away and had it in class? So these are some big things to think about, because is it just a pouch that you're worried about? Because if that phone gets taken away, and like someone said, what if it's stuck in the pouch? So if you work till 5 o'clock, your child's phone is sitting in the main office, Scott, you might leave at 4. I work till 5, it's Friday. I'm not getting my son's phone back till Monday. So these are some of the other things to really start thinking about when you look at the cell phone policy. And this is a tool that's going to put the phone in the child's hand all day. So, I mean, it's just something to get you thinking about if you have more questions to ask.
Thank you.
Quick question. Will there be a follow-up to this on how the implementation went?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a pilot, it's a grant-funded program. We want to share data, we want to be transparent about it, and frankly, if it's a complete bomb, then it's a bomb. Then next year, we look at something different. We try something different. Again, we're not trying to punish, we are just trying to teach. So, you know, if this doesn't work out and we're wrong about it, then I'll fall on that sword, for sure.
Just a quick question. So I know that they mentioned that most kids don't forget to unlock it. My child is the most forgetful person on the face of the planet. So she goes home by herself after school most days. If she were to go home on a Friday, I don't get out of work till 5:30, and I work sometimes the weekend, and she's home by herself. What do I do to get the phone out of the house besides cut it? Is somebody going to be available if I were to send a message and say, I don't want to cut the couch, you know, like, can somebody unlock it? Can I get somebody somewhere to get it unlocked?
I would just call it.
I would seriously, I've been doing this since 2017. In middle schools, elementary schools, colleges, high schools.
I get that, but I don't know, I'm struggle getting her to bring home the backpack every day, never mind what's in the backpack.
I myself have horrible executive functioning skills. Had an IEP in school, and I can tell you, myself might forget it. Never. I just never ever had it. I think your students can do this. I truly do. Truly.
Would there be potential to put one of those maybe at the police station? Yeah. So that
That's a great idea. You know what? That's a great idea. Yep. Good. No, I like it.
Question. Could it open through a flash?
That's a good idea.
Yep, that's a fantastic idea. I support that.
Over the weekend, if someone forgot and locked it, would they be able to come up and put it to the glass? You can't.
I do like that idea.
It's a good thought, though. That's a good thought.
We appreciate that, and if you have any other good ideas, please share. Unfortunately, we have school committee.